If you've felt shoved away from the institutional church, been hurt by the church, or disappointed in your idea of God, the Psalms affirm all those things as faithful moments, whatever's going on in your life.
Welcome to Creative Creative. I'm Dawn.
And I'm Ruth. And
It's YouTube launch day.
yes, we're launching YouTube. It's funny. I don't think we ever really had that as a goal set out
No.
to do. But then we were looking at this video footage we end up with, and it's actually really cool.
It's more compelling
Mhm.
than I thought it would be.
Yeah. And so now you'll have your choice. If you like to listen to podcasts, you can keep listening to us only. But if you prefer YouTube, you'll have that option. It's been
Yeah.
quite a week, hasn't it?
It has been an emotionally charged week.
Yes.
And I am loving the things you have posted around
Oh.
Bishop Marianne. Is it? I haven't listened to
Yeah.
anyone say her name.
Marianne Edgar Buddy is how I've
Buddy.
heard it.
Just preaching the gospel.
Just preaching. She was just
Just preaching.
I have been reflecting on this a lot about how I know many preachers who are gentle and powerful and brave like her, but it's so good to see that on the national stage, you know?
Yes, and I am loving the second layer of all these people going, wait, there's Christians like this?
Yes,
They don't
we are
even
here,
know.
right?
And there's
yeah.
millions of us.
Mhm,
They don't even
exactly.
know we exist.
Yes.
Like people writing, oh, I wouldn't be atheist if this was what Christianity was. And I'm like, hello?
Exactly. Yes, there's lots of preaching like that happening. It's just unfortunately, it's not always the preaching that gets,
It doesn't get shared.
Yeah.
So back to we need a marketing department.
Yeah. So I feel like whenever I get frustrated with all of the news lately, then I'll just do something else to promote her or something like her.
Yes.
Because, promote the good stuff.
I think over the next 4 years, there's going to be more and more voices. She probably emboldens some people.
Mm-hmm.
If you follow in her footsteps, it's not about going out to use this frame of mind to attack. It's just laying it out.
I love that she was so gentle but powerful at the same time. And her message was so gospel based. And like the people that are trying to paint her as this liberal agenda just look ridiculous because,
Right.
I mean, she's just preaching the gospel. That's what she's doing.
And she even prefaced it with, he says that he believes in the same God. So
Right.
this is what God's saying.
Yeah, it was so respectful.
Just having the bravery to know
Mhm.
what you're saying is challenging
Mm-hmm.
and saying it anyway.
Yep. Oh, it was just beautiful. And it gave me such hope because I needed that
Yeah.
day,
Yeah.
to hear her voice and
Yes.
and that it was a woman in ministry too. Like
Yes.
that was really encouraging. So anyway, thank you. I'm sure you're listening, Right Reverend Marianne Edgar Buddy, and thank you.
So that is encouraging. And if you're needing encouragement, be an Art February challenge.
Yeah, it seems like February can be a time when people are needing a little burst of joy.
Yes. And so we're having this creative challenge.
Mm-hmm.
A new creative thing every day. Does it have to be new to you, or it's just new, like not repeating in February? Right.
So maybe even variations on a theme or something too, but just not the exact same creative thing for 28 days, something different each day.
So you are creating and you're growing your synapses, and
Mhm.
creativity is often quite an overlap with spirituality too.
So many of our guests have talked about that they see creativity and spirituality as practically the same thing. So
Right.
it helps us grow in all kinds of different ways. And please join the challenge by going to our website, creativepodcast.com, and sign up.
So that we can encourage you and make you
Mhm.
eligible for valuable prizes.
Yes.
And we'll be on social media every day sharing what we did that day.
Yes.
And today's guest is so creative.
So creative. One of the most creative people I've met, and our first returning guest.
Our first
Mhm.
repeat.
So enjoy this interview with Richard Bruxvoort Colligan.
I get to say happy anniversary because you're over a year now.
We are.
Congratulations. So many
yeah.
great episodes you've banked.
Oh, thank you.
It was funny. I was re-listening to your first episode, Richard, and it was almost exactly a year ago that we were talking.
What?
Yeah,
I wouldn't have guessed it was that long ago.
I know. I think it was January 15th, but a lot can happen in a year, right?
You said it.
Yeah.
Tell us who you are in case anyone missed the other episode.
I can do that. My name is Richard Bruxvoort Colligan. I live in Strawberry Point, Iowa, a little tiny town of 1,000 with my wife. and 2 dogs. I have a 23-year-old son who lives the next town over, and I'm in my studio right now looking out the back window at our neighbor's sheep pasture. It's sort of funny because we live on the main street of the metropolis that is Strawberry Point, but our backyard looks like Ireland or something.
That's
It's a
great.
best of both worlds.
I love that visual. See, from every picture you've ever posted, I've just always thought you're in the middle of the country. I didn't realize you were right downtown.
Why is the town there? What did the Iowans of yore decide about a town needs to go here?
That's a good question. It was right on the wagon trail and then eventually railroad.
Okay.
But there's been in Strawberry Point a lot of small businesses, as you can imagine, but kind of a bedroom community for folks that live in Cedar Rapids.
I do have a burning question before we proceed because when I was re-listening to your last episode, you talked about the dogs and you said you were thinking about a cat. So you must still be thinking about the cat. The cat hasn't happened yet?
No, keep thinking about the cat. Keep trying to drop little hints to my wife that, oh, you know what would be good here? A cat. Oh, was that a mouse? If we had a cat, there'd be no mice around here. Just trying my best. Yeah.
Yes, you need a cat.
But as it is, I've become way more of a dog person than I thought I'd ever be.
All right. Well, that question is answered. Thank you.
It's really why we had you back. Thank you for coming.
Okay,
We'll let
resolved.
you know when it airs.
I'll have you back next year to check on the cat situation.
Check on and get the up-to-date info on this cat.
So last year when we spoke, Richard, we had such a great time talking to you. And then because of technical difficulties, a lot of the interview got cut off. And so our listeners didn't get to hear a lot of it. And so today I want to revisit a few of the questions about creativity that we talked about last time. But then also you have something in the works that we are really excited to hear about too.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Oh my gosh, such a good teaser.
Okay, so you're a very creative person. That's how I think of you. I want to ask you, how do you see creativity and spirituality connect?
I think for me, they're the very same thing. I was thinking the other day about the Bible. Barbara Brown Taylor has this great podcast about renegotiating your relationship with the Bible.
Ooh.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
It's really great. And I think in my first degree in seminary is in theology and the arts. I think theology and the arts really go together. Spirituality and creativity, they come from the same well, I would say. If there's an idea in me about creation, well, that's probably, I don't tend to use this language, but a God thing, a God-connected thing, an inspired thing, if you will, with breath in it, inspire, expire, those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
So anytime I feel like I'm engaging art, sometimes if there's a film or a song that I don't get right away, in fact, I might even have some resistance to it. I don't know if I like this. What is this? I walked out of a movie a couple weeks ago and thought, I don't know if I like that or not, but I'm pretty sure it was art. I'm confused. I feel all, again, I'm going to need to think about that one. And that's my experience with God. It is not one thing. It is not one facet. It is not one stream. There's a lot to it. In that way, I feel like spirituality and art, they're in the same room, same party, maybe even the same conversation.
Yeah.
I want to go to that party.
Wouldn't that be great? Who should we invite there? Let's see. Yeah, we need Greta Gerwig, Coen
Yes.
Brothers. I'm thinking about movies for some reason.
Oh, yeah. John Chu is very of the moment.
He needs to be there.
Yeah.
And how much of creativity do you think is discipline and how much is inspiration?
Honestly, I don't know if I like either of those words.
Say more.
Okay.
Love it.
My
Yeah.
hot take would be, I think I use words like curiosity and will. Like creativity can happen anytime. It doesn't mean it's something that needs to be monetized or for anyone in particular to enjoy. It's my job in our house to shower the dogs about once a week. So I tell you, some of my most brilliant songs have come with showering our Bernedoodle. And they're songs about washing his paws. That's it. That's breakthrough moments for me. But that is a creative life when you're available to, at a whim, just see, I wonder what if I sang about Jack's big furry paws. Or recently, I've been a caregiver to my wife that's recovering from surgery. That is a creative life. To negotiate a relationship that you've had, you're on different terms or you have different roles for each other for a while. That is creativity, and it doesn't matter to anybody. Nobody cares, but it matters. Like when you do art, so we do this thing at church, artist studio, and often we will do a little preamble saying, there's nothing you can screw up here tonight. Whatever you got in front of you, needlepoint, coloring book, mosaic art, There's no rules here to be broken. You're going to do great. Just know that. And then from there, we can say things like explore, trust your creativity. It doesn't matter to anybody, not even a little bit, if you put this mosaic tile here or there, but somehow it does matter for you because you thought it and you're going to follow through with that.
I love that. That's really beautiful.
What do you think about that, though? How does that flow for you to these days?
We are doing a creative challenge in February in which we definitely need your definition because we want to try a new thing 28 days in a row.
Oh,
We're saying no repeats, but also I can't come up with 28 crafts. It needs to be renegotiating a relationship with a person, like you just said, or taking a different route to a place that we often go. And I'm excited for the expansive way in which you are defining creativity as following a curiosity and valuing it.
Rick Rubin, producer, has a great book out. I can't remember the name of it right now, but he talks about that too. When you're in the studio making a thing, oh, you better not be thinking about who's going to buy this, wreck it all. There's no way. You just need to follow your curiosity, follow your imagination. Whatever that is going to be the brilliance that the world needs. Even if nobody buys it or looks at it or whatever, somehow it matters that you are doing it.
The process of doing it is the important part, not
think
the
so.
thing you present as a result.
I think so.
I
I'm
love that.
curious about your February thing.
Yeah. We're encouraging people every day in February to do something, a creative challenge, and then to share it. And we, of course, have a hashtag for it.
Yeah.
Hashtag created creative challenge. And then each day, Don and I are going to go live to talk about what we are doing that day, just for a few minutes.
I'm thinking of a story about art that doesn't matter. I think it was 30 years ago or something. I just had a piece of scratch paper. For whatever reason, I made just a little sketch of a board, like a piece of wood. I tacked it up on my bulletin board, and it stayed with me for like several moves. I did it when I was a bachelor, and then I've been married twice, and it stayed with me. And then one day, for some reason, I threw it away because I thought, well, this doesn't matter. I've missed it. I've missed it in my life. I think about that stupid sketch like every month. Why did that matter? Why there's something about creating it and seeing it and remembering for me, that was a moment that mattered, was meaningful. Can't tell you why, but that was worth commemorating. And I don't know, that's a good reminder that what we do in art, whether we frame it as art or not, all that can be really meaningful.
I love that.
So the question of it's discipline or is it inspiration, the question implies there is some container and outcome. That's why you would need discipline.
Yep. I think if you want to make a living, if you want to have it be a vocation, there probably is some momentum you need with both of those. Inspiration, discipline. I'm going to get up. My favorite example is Paul Simon, who talks about being a songwriter. That's my job. I'm just going to get up, and it's a percentage thing. If 10% of what I write is not shit, that's great. That's a good day. So just keep writing, doing the thing.
I love how even those very top people say that when you tour Prince's house outside Minneapolis, it's a similar, the amount of output is stunning.
Yeah.
Not to say he was throwing spaghetti at the wall and, a few turned out to be good. I mean, there is a talent there, but just the amount of practice that went in before each of those amazing songs is incredible.
Right?
Yeah. There's a life that was really dedicated to exploring.
Yeah.
What does that mean for you as a songwriter?
I don't write as much as I used to. But when I was a freelancer, I thought about it as part of my job, the way I made money and income. So it was important to generate. So I had a CD to sell at the table. Remember those? Gosh.
Yes.
Streaming now, so it doesn't matter that now. But more than the money part, that was part of my just creative life. This is what I want as a freelance musician. I am doing concerts, I'm sharing my thoughts, and I'm generating these little 3-minute pieces of craft that might be art, maybe not, I don't know. But it matters to me that I'm writing every day, that enriches every other part of my life, really. And at the end of the day, literally, I can lay my head down saying, the juices have been flowing.
Is it your sort of meditation?
In a way, it is. I think if a spiritual practice is the thing that you do to help you be the most you can be, help you be centered, help you feel enriched, then songwriting has definitely been that for most of my life. And I think it still is. But these days, I work at a church. I'm not freelancing anymore. And mostly I write functional songs for our community, like really specific things. Here's an idea we should be singing about, or here's a text that I don't know if we're going to get unless we have some music flowing through us, unless we harmonize together. So,
Mhm.
time to write a song.
Yeah.
And that's a
So,
different kind of challenge.
and then it sounds like you're helping other people with their creativity as well to like with, you can't do this wrong.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Some kind of
right. I think in our community, it's definitely that. To work on art is, well, work. That even you say that playing, we're playing really. Whichever way you want to say it, we're working on it, we're playing with it. That is a dance with the divine. That's a dance with an invisible life, if you will, your spiritual life.
What is that container? Like people are coming to the church, it must be called something. What is the container for that art that everyone's doing together at your church?
Well, Olive Branch is part
Mhm.
of Mount Olive Lutheran Church that my partner, Pastor Lisa Janke, and I have been sort of curating for almost 5 years now, I guess. People that attend Olive Branch things tend to be artsy, tends to be a little bit anti-institutional. Most of the people who come have had at least a couple of upheavals in their faith life, or they've been so hurt by the church for a while, I didn't want to go back. I was smart enough to not think that was the place for me, but have and continue to have a deep sort of spiritual life. So here are places to do art, not churchy art, just whatever you do. For movie night, this Monday we do Artist Studio and we're watching Moana, sort of at the same time as a family thing. So some people will do art, some people watch the movie, some of us will
Oh,
do both.
I love that.
Yeah, worship too. We do worship. We do a thing called faith seeking understanding. It's kind of a pub theology condensed, I guess, into a really particular vibe. But we
Oh.
love that sort of thing for everybody, probably. But it's
I'm glad you mentioned doing the art along with the movie because apparently the interim that I'm at right now, they have a tradition like starting in, January or February to do a movie night, like, I don't know, every few weeks. And that might make it bearable for me if we include some, oh, here's a table for you could do art stuff too if you want to instead
oh
or
yeah,
along with it.
big pile of crayons, coloring books, yeah, anything like that.
Yeah.
You can let your mind wander.
Thank you for the idea.
Do you
So
get to pick the movies?
I think that I can if I want to. Yeah. I just found out about this a little bit ago. So then they're like, we want to do that still. And I'm like, we do. Like,
Who's we?
yeah, who's we?
Who are you talking about?
But if they enjoy it, it'll be fun. But I think that could be a fun aspect to have the art along with it. Then
Yeah.
another question I wanted to ask you is who are some of your favorite creators right now?
I mentioned films have been important to me. Films, I call them films because I'm very
Right,
intellectual
hoity-toity.
and things like that.
Yes.
The movies I grew up
A
with.
movie, the
or-
pictures.
yeah, the moving pictures. I think I've always loved movies, but some of the makers I really like, the Coen brothers I mentioned, Greta Gerwig. Storytelling with that. Wicked, I've seen once so far and want to go back to that.
So good.
Maybe like a lot of people, I memorized the music from the stage production. From I guess it was that way with Hamilton also. I could have got the music in my head and eventually saw that Hamilton and eventually Wicked, the film, and didn't ever quite compare it to my imagination listening to the music. But anyway, it goes to Lin-Manuel Miranda of Moana fame also.
Yes, of
There.
course. Favorite.
I was thinking, since I'm writing a book right now, I've been thinking about my favorite authors. I think Gretel Ehrlich is my favorite author, probably. And she writes about landscapes, geography. She's kind of a poet, except it's all prose. I read her books very slowly. She writes about ice caps melting. She writes about the tsunami in Japan from years ago. She writes about being struck by lightning. Like, whatever the topic is, oh my gosh, her imagination I feel like I'm just curled up at her feet listening to a storyteller.
Excellent. Okay, so the spoiler, you mentioned the spoiler, which is great because that was the next thing I wanted to talk about. So, when you were here last time, you had mentioned to us that you wanted to write a book. And then the next thing I know, I hear you're writing a book. So, tell us, did you write like a query to a publisher to get a book deal? Tell us how it all unfolded.
First of all, the thing that happened in between, as you both know, but people don't know, is Don coached me at the end of that session and pretty much kind of held me to, well, if you want to do this, how about a week from Friday? And, email some publishers. At least that's how I remember it.
So it's directly from that time?
Oh, pretty much. I totally needed just a nudge in that direction.
Yay. I mean, we're not taking credit. We're thrilled to be a stop along the way that tipped a scale that you already were fully prepared for.
Well, I mean, you both know what it's like to run into a conversation that just sort of energizes you just enough
Right.
to get you to the place of, I can really do this, or I can move on this, or I am ready after all. I didn't think I was, but actually I think I am. It was a little like that. So I was really happy with that. I had a connection at Broadleaf, which is an imprint of Augsburg Fortress. Another author friend publishes through them. So yeah, made a pitch and they were interested, and there we went.
What are we allowed to know about this book?
It's about the Psalms.
It's a Psalms book
Yeah.
because you have your doctorate in something psalm related.
Psalminess, I think, is the
Psalminess?
yes.
You have a doctorate in psalminess?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes,
great.
That's right.
Good.
I'm super excited about it. It's a book about my experience with the Psalms, and I think all human experience, maybe. Walt Brueggemann famously talks about 3 categories of Psalms, and there's Psalms of orientation. That would be the happy Psalms, the praise. There's Psalms of disorientation, that are the deep, dark, scary laments. And then Psalms of reorientation, which talk about, well, just that, finding yourself centered. And all that, I've been steeping in that for years. And the way I tend to talk about the Psalms is in terms of human experience. So I'm a spiritual director, and the idea that formation and development of a person happens over a lifetime is my lens, is the lens I use most of the time. An awareness that we are in a lifetime run of being shaped. Songs are part of that. Liturgy is part of that. Friendship is part of that. There's so many things. And yet, sometimes we get this sense that we're not supposed to change, or that things aren't supposed to be in upheaval ever, or we shouldn't be expecting people to change their minds, to leave old ideas behind.
Everyone wrote in my high school yearbook, stay sweet. So
And look
can't
what happened,
change.
Dawn. Look what
I
happened to you.
know it did not
Where are we?
take.
So the book is about 3 main sections, 3 main dimensions of what I think are human life. They relate to Brueggemann's structures too. There are moments of thriving. That is, everybody listening to this, you can probably think about one thing in your life that's going pretty well. And even if it's a stupidly small thing, like something that's okay. In the Psalms, there's lots of joyous songs about when things are good, make a big deal about it. Clap your hands with the rivers and the forests and be part of the whole congregation of the world and give thanks and praise. But there's more than that going on with everybody too. We also have desolation, or at least that's the category I call it. Something that is in deep transition. There's loss, there is grief, there might be sadness or outrage or anything in between like that. And that is a real part of life. It's probably a dimension of life that we don't talk about as the church very well. There's a theology out there that says if you're a person of faith, you're probably going to be happy most of the time. Life should be easy. And if it's not, maybe you're doing it wrong, or your faith is weak, something like that. Not so. In the Psalms, having desolation, grief, this is a faithful moment, and it takes a lot of trust to sing a lament. And then the third category is wonder, as in, I wonder what the hell's going on with my life, or I wonder what God is doing in the world, things like that. Plenty of Psalms that sing, God, teach me, show me, guide me. If I knew what to do, I would totally go there, but I have no clue. I just need some, inspiration or determination. I need some little nudge, and I would totally do it. So I feel like we mostly, as humans, live the deepest life when we're aware of thriving and desolation that's always in us, and that the Psalms affirm all of those in a really rich way.
So, of course, we have a lot of listeners who are also interested in their creative projects and probably are curious, wondering what was the process like for you of making the proposal for the book? Was it a big written proposal? Did they want to change your proposal much, or did they like, oh, your idea is perfect, go for it?
The proposal process was pretty easy. I had in my mind pretty much what I wanted to do. When I was freelancing for about 20 years as a musician, I did psalm workshops all the time, and people would ask to sing the Psalms, and I do a lot of writing around the Psalms, so it might be an hour or a day or a weekend of workshop examining the texts, but also singing these ancient songs of Israel, which is, I think, how they're meant to be taken in, how they're meant to be experienced. I think it's a disservice if we're just reading the text of the Psalms without imagining, without even enacting the musicality of them.
It sounds like you kind of test marketed for 20 years. So they're like, we need to sell a book. They are thinking about the end market. That's what a publisher is.
Somebody should, yeah.
Yeah, let them do it. I'm saying you're the artist, but they are a business.
Mhm.
And you gave them an idea that you had sort of test marketed for 20 or more years.
At some point, I realized during that freelance time, I could have a certain the word mastery. I don't think
Mhm.
about that exactly that way, but a mastery of that topic of the Psalms where tell me how long you want me to talk because I'll can
I'm
do
in.
what you need here. I would love to go for, can we do a fortnight of Psalm?
People would sign up for that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll put that. Next
Mhm.
February, 28 days of the Psalms. Let's do that.
In a warm place.
Yeah, good idea. I
Oh,
like
good idea.
So I had this
Yes.
framework for this material, and I didn't know anybody else was really teaching the Psalms the way I was doing it. And so what I proposed was if this could be condensed into a book, I would love to let people have access to that.
Mhm.
Interesting. So it's a teaching book, really.
There's certainly a teaching element to it, but that spiritual director side of me that's all about people's formation
Mm-hmm.
wants people to just be affirmed in their life,
Yeah.
particularly if you've felt shoved away from the institutional church, been hurt by the church, or disappointed in your idea of God. That the Psalms affirm all those things as faithful moments, whatever's going on in your life. Kind of like Ecclesiastes 3. There's a time for any of those things, and it might be time for grief. And that's a good human thing. Like, get into it. None of the Psalms are going to tell you to get over that in your life. Psalms are going to say, there's a lot here. Like, don't move on until it's time. There's a real psychology to the Psalms that has been surprising to me,
Mm-hmm.
especially the laments, that there's a way to process what we've been hurt about or what we're enraged about, what we're dealing with loss in. And it really seems to reflect what traumatologists say are a good way to move through those kinds of things. So I hope the book is affirming to people, especially those who are having a hard time,
Yeah.
especially those who are in the desolation and wonder category,
Uh-huh.
to remind
Yes.
people, oh, this is normal. You might look online and see books or take classes that say, there's a better way to do this, or you should
Mhm.
buy this book, do this program, and things will just be easier, better. No, not really. Your life is going to be hard. Everybody's life is a little bit
Mhm.
hard. And when you're in it, just know that
It feels wildly counterculture. Mhm.
to a kind of theology that just doesn't want to acknowledge, for whatever reason, that life is hard, that cancer happens, that divorce is happening, or whatever it is.
So you've got this project that now you've got a publisher waiting for it. So do you have a writing practice in place that, to keep you chugging along at this? Or do you have a time every day? Or how is that going?
I don't have a writing time every day right now. When I got through the first draft of the whole book, it was really like several years of waking up early, even before I thought about a publisher, of just writing in the morning before my filters got turned on in my mind.
Yeah.
Just writing about whatever psalm related thing came to my mind. So I drew from a lot of that and then structured it. And that became the first draft, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah, but these days I'm in fact needing to sort of shoehorn in time to look at this or look at that. Like I'm preaching on Sunday, so that's going on this week.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also delivering meds to my beloved who can't get out of her hospital bed quite yet, and washing the dog and things like that. So
Right.
all these creative things. But to prioritize the polishing of each sort of chapter at a time, it's been really good. I've been really energized by the process. I wasn't sure if I would at this stage. I mean, the polishing part.
Right. It's a different skill than the first creation part.
Yeah, isn't that true? I'm really good with a shitty first draft. I am so good with that.
Yeah.
Among all my colleagues at church know, oh, you need a newsletter thing written? Well, I'll just sort of get you started and then pass it
Yeah.
on to you. Like,
Right.
just have
And
a
you can
place
fix
to
it.
start crossing off the stuff that is not going to work is good.
You would make a good screenwriter. You could hang out with all these film directors.
Yeah.
They're all about the
Those-
shitty first draft.
Yeah. We need a film about the Psalms.
Oh, we do.
Maybe. I do have a fantasy about this. You don't need to coach me on this because it's definitely in the fantasy realm.
Okay.
Dawn.
Not in the reality part.
No, I really don't think so. But it's Lin-Manuel Miranda and I are at a party or something, and I met him. Do you know anything about the Psalms? I'm talking about political intrigue, sex, violence. I'm talking about the life of David, Lin-Manuel. And I think we're going to work together. Let's write some music. The text is already there. We've got 150 Psalms in the realm of David's voice. Not that we think David wrote a bunch of those, but a whole bunch of stories there. And then we do that on Broadway.
We have a connection, so let us know when you're ready.
Okay.
So, does the publisher give you a date that they need this by, or is it sort of when it's done, it's done?
One of the dates was 3 days ago.
And how'd it go?
We had some good conversation about that because
Uh-huh.
I guess the last couple of months at the publishing house were extra busy too. So we just agreed, well, I'll submit some things, but it's not going to be all done when we thought.
Okay.
They're thinking that probably in the fall of 2025 it'll be released.
Oh my gosh,
coming.
that's so exciting. Yes.
Is there a time of year a psalm book does better?
Good question. I think the Psalms always play well in Lent or Advent, those little parts where worship life can sort of spotlight the Psalms. But I don't know if it works out to that or not.
This is so exciting that our
know.
conversation happened at the moment you needed that inflection.
It really is.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
I
yeah.
love that.
And I don't know if you're ready to make the segue, but Dawn, I do have something I'd like your
Yes.
juice
that's-
in the
Great,
midst of.
let's go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As I think about this book rolling out, what I want is to have material sort of in orbit around it that people can engage. And I
Mhm.
don't know how to think about what that'll be, how much effort to put into it, like how worth it would that be? Like I've wondered about a study guide. I've wondered about even a limited podcast to talk about the book. I've wondered about like a series of videos that people can find. I'm not really sure what to start with that. Those have just been ideas. Like if I were really excited about somebody else's book, I would love to just experience it in some different ways.
Have you asked 5 people around you what they would want?
No, I have not.
I mean, let's see
Oh.
what the people say.
I'll just spout out here as a pastor and hearing about your
You're my
book.
number one person, Ruth.
Okay, this is one of 5.
Number
now you
one.
need 4 more. Go, Ruth.
Like, I was thinking about how it sounds like the kind of book that would be really cool to have a companion book with it that people could write in, their reflections and,
A workbook.
like a workbook of some kind. And if you think it would be the kind of book that would be cool for a church group to go through together, that just seems like a really natural companion to have.
I think this will be really great with groups. At first, I was thinking it'd just be for individual reading with people lighting a candle and getting all moody and curling up with the Psalms. But more and more, I think, oh, this is about also, again, spiritual formation of a community and worship life. And everybody's got stories about their own experience with those things.
One cookie cutter to look at is Kate Bowler, in that when her books come out, there's suddenly an Advent devotion on the same themes using bits of the book.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And it all coordinates, and then I can sign up for an email and get a little bit of that book every day.
My gosh, yeah.
So
I
you
love
could do
that.
that for Lent or whatever. But she also, podcasts, speaking, all of that rolls out right as the book hits.
Mm-hmm.
And I know she has a team and it is funded by Lily, and that's a whole system, but that doesn't mean you can't do some version of it.
Yeah, I've done little segments of podcasts for pulpit fiction, and they've done that for years. So at some point, I'd banked like a little 10-minute reflection on the psalm of the day for every psalm in the lectionary, pretty much.
Oh
And I
my
really
gosh.
enjoyed doing that. So I've wondered about that sort of thing. So
Yep.
much of podcast dialogue, but just like content that might be a sermon help or if you don't know anything about Psalm 52, I'm just going to tell you at a glance, here's what you need to know. And here's what's really
Yeah.
interesting about it.
I also work with a couple pastors that live and die by having kind of a theme given to them along with some sermon outlines. If you had the Lenten, here's 6 Psalms to use, here is a musical setting, here is an outline of something and a prayer of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And just some people who are like half-time in a 6-point parish looking for any theologically sound thing to plug in. They just cannot produce enough
Right.
on the hours they have, but they want to serve these people well.
That's a great idea. I probably would start with like a short series of a
Yeah,
theme
4
through,
weeks.
like start
Yep.
with those maybe. That's
I
great.
guess also, where are people talking? The people who have been hurt by the church, where are they?
Probably not at church,
Right.
although some of us are. Yeah.
I mean, the main thing it sounds like you need is sort of a market research series of phone calls beyond Ruth. I mean, you could
Yeah.
include Ruth and continue right now, but like if I said I have a resource for Psalms, what would you think is in it? What are you looking for? How would you use it?
Hmm.
Right.
If you're going to do this with a group, can you describe that group of people in 5 words?
Yeah, because while I might think a book is the perfect thing, I'm beginning to realize there's generations younger than me that think other things are a lot cooler than a book to have too.
I'm very aware of my people in like Western North Dakota. The pastor comes like every 3rd week. What if there were Psalms that they could be playing?
Yeah.
Like with that resources sermon for every Sunday. those downloadable sermons that churches can use if they just don't have someone to preach that Sunday. And they're really good sermons, and it's like well-known preachers too. If
Mm.
you had a series like that on sermons on the Psalms too, could be
Also,
cool.
call those people and have them link to your stuff.
Gosh, I mean, it feels
Oh, that's cool.
really unlimited, the kinds of things that could be useful to the church, And like you were talking about, that resource you were thinking of making, talking about every psalm in the lectionary, I mean,
Yeah.
that would be so helpful.
Yeah.
Did you say you actually have done that with that other podcast?
With Pulpit Fiction.
A person can go back and listen to old episodes, and you're on a bunch of them talking about the Psalms.
Sure enough.
Oh,
So I'm wondering if the website is a place to find all this stuff you've already done.
I'm thinking of making a
And
dedicated
organizing it.
website for the
Yes.
book material. Well, and in the digital copy, I guess,
Yeah.
is a little scannable thing. So with your phone, you can pick up a couple of songs that I've made that go with that psalm.
I mean, a lot of it you have created. We're just deciding how to organize it.
Yeah, organizing it.
Got to make it easy for people, which it sounds like that's what you want to do. I'm just like picturing how is this happening?
Yeah.
Chapter 1, scan here. Here's a bunch of resources for chapter 1. And those resources also are not just a list. It's like, here's different ways of using it depending on what venue.
Yeah. And maybe that's where there'd be some liturgical resources with prayers
Yeah,
or even
exactly.
institution that have the psalms all over them.
And I'm thinking about how, like John Stevens has just kind of become the guy for children's sermons. Everybody, like if they're looking for a children's sermon, they know to go look at John Stevens stuff. How do we make sure that Richard is the psalm guy?
I want to be John Stevens of the psalms.
One thing to do would be contact John Stevens.
Oh,
I mean, all these people already putting stuff out say, you want to connect to a psalm? I'm your guy. So that when they go to 6 different kinds of resources, they keep seeing your psalm.
And I mean, John was very open that his biggest thing is consistency, that he would put out, for 10 years, he's been putting out 2 videos every week, one for the narrative and one for the revised comment, a children's sermon. So
amazing.
I know, isn't that cool?
Well, these are great ideas. Yeah. And I know
Beside-
Broadleaf is really interested in supporting the book and stuff, but there's going to be some of this stuff that I'm going to initiate
too.
and want to do myself.
Ask them
Yeah.
how they can get you into spaces where people who are not so churchy but open to spirituality, like Krista Tippett on NPR,
Huh?
that kind of stuff.
I want to be the Krista Tippett of Psalms.
You want Krista Tippett to talk to you also.
Yeah.
Yes.
See what kind of connections they can provide for you.
Yeah.
I've met throughout the fall, daily or weekly, whatever you can really do. This happened today. Here's a perfect psalm. Some of them you could pre-record and see it coming, like Thanksgiving. Other
Yeah.
things might be, this huge thing just happened. Here's a lament.
Right.
And you used to do a ton of videos like that with Psalms, right, Richard?
Yeah, and
I
the
know-
pandemic has started doing this every week.
Yes, I'm thinking about like David Gate. And there's poetry every day from him online. It gets widely shared because it feels very up to the moment. I'm thinking you're
Videos.
just drawing from what you have
Yeah.
Oh,
as
you've
you
got,
look at what's happening in the world.
I mean, you've got a lot. I remember because I used to use a lot of it during the pandemic.
Yeah.
But kind of cool because you've done it for so long that like can see young Richard and a little bit older Richard, and Richard has his glasses on now. Like it's changing over the years.
That's right.
What if I
Not-
could have like an even song? And I know there's a video there every night by 9. I'm thinking about also like Heather Cox Richardson. She writes a history book in real time and emails it every night at midnight. I don't know if you know her.
that.
She's a historian. So it's like a history book of today.
Wow.
It's amazing. And it says Congress is fighting over this because of this thing in the Civil War. And she just knows. She is so smart.
Yeah.
I'm able to make sense of a barrage of whatever's happening because she's distilling it down in the way a history book is written and emailing me every night.
Interesting.
So if I could have a psalm that just captures the vibe of the day, and you don't have to write them, you have them, but just saying, what's
Right.
the world like today?
Yeah. I can totally imagine that.
Because that's what gets shared. I feel this way. I want to share that.
Mm-hmm.
Psalm
Wow,
of the
this
day
is great.
hashtag.
Psalm of the day.
I feel like you are good at capturing the mood of a group. So why not capture the mood of everyone?
One thing I enjoy most about my church job is every Sunday I get a little spotlight time with the psalm.
Mm-hmm.
And for worship services, if it's going to run a little long, the psalm is the first thing to go.
Right.
But they know, the
Not with you
congregation knows.
there.
Yeah.
That's right.
Don't
Not
mess with
here.
my psalm.
So we have that psalm, but I also get to do a little formational reflection, invite
Yep.
people to take a breath. This is what's going on in the world. Here's a song from 3,000 years ago that might remind us about this. Go
You're
on it.
already doing it. I just want it on YouTube.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
know. And
I
like
think
just
that's
what
the
you were,
way.
if I saw you popping up on my Instagram every day, I'd be like, oh, here's a moment of peace with Richard. He's
Or
so
lament or
welcome.
wonder.
Mm-hmm.
There's
Yeah.
3 buckets.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. I think that's what the world needs right there.
I
I
would
think
love
also
that.
people will be looking for peace if our larger national systems feel volatile, which is possible.
We have things to process. That stuff does not belong in your body for long.
Mhm.
Clear it out. What do we need to do together, sort of move through what could be a time where a lot of us are vulnerable, or people we know are vulnerable?
Could you please start quickly? We need this.
Yes.
I think the thing I need to think about is it sustainable for me to do every day? To think about
Or once a week.
a bank of things for every day.
Right.
I love daily things. Weekly things might be more possible.
Whatever is sustainable for you.
Right.
Yeah.
We don't need this to be like a handcuff for you. And I'm definitely thinking these are not all original videos because you
Yeah,
already
that-
have it.
I don't have a mind for that. I got to think about it in a
Mm.
different way, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, thank you both. This has been great.
Mm,
Thanks for all
gosh.
the juice around the.
We're ready to create a
book, the
world-wide
stuff.
phenomenon.
I know. Yes, I'm here for all of it. Richard the Psalm Guy. We're so lucky to have your time again. Thank you for sharing your time with us, and couldn't be more thrilled about your book. And I'm going to be first in line to get it when it comes out.
Thank you for listening to Created Creative.
We're so glad that you were with us to share in creative ideas with us.
And throughout the month of February, we want to include you in the creativity.
We are going to be having a 28-day creativity challenge, encouraging everyone to explore a new creative activity each day. No repeats, 28 different things. And then the things that you try, take a picture and post it on social media with the hashtag Created Creative Challenge.
So go to createdcreativepodcast.com to sign up for the challenge and to get a list of 100 ideas to do during your 28-day challenge.
And Don and I will be going live each day to share our own creative quests.
Now, but especially during February, go create something.
Go create something!